The memorable run for the Cup is over, but we're still talking Penguins hockey. It's 11 on the ice from Jerome Bettis Grill 36. Here now are Alby Oxenreiter, Bill Phillips, Rich Walsh, and the old 2-9er, Phil Bourque.
An unbelievable locker room after that final game. That looked like it may have been the toughest locker room to go in and do some work in.
You know what, losing locker rooms are always brutal, but when it's the Stanley Cup Finals, and I tell you the truth, I didn't expect to see what I saw. When I walked in, I kind of went to the right and came around to an open locker room. It was the most dejected locker room I've ever seen. And I saw the Steelers after they lost Super Bowl 30, the Pirates when they lost some playoff games in the early 90s, the Penguins when they've lost earlier round playoff games. I've never seen a locker room where the guys look more upset than they did the other night.
Well, it's different than the regular season. When the regular season ends, yeah, you're heartbroken if you didn't make the playoffs or whatever. And even if you lost in the first round or the second round, there's something different about losing in the finals. You're so close, you can taste it. You've gone through so much with your brothers. You've laid everything out there physically, mentally, emotionally, and there's something about when it's all said and done, it's like somebody pulling the cork out of the emotional tank and everything just drains out from underneath you.
And a few days later, they're still dejected. I mean, I talked to the guys today, we were there today, and they still can't believe, that's the feeling that I got, that they can't believe that it's over. They lost a series. They don't want to go home, but you know, they only have a couple months now, though. I mean, talk about a grueling season. Yeah. I mean, just talk about what NHL players go through. And we talked about this today, about, I don't mean to change the subject, but we talked about what these players did. Ryan Malone, if he would have got hurt, he might have given up $20 million.
Well, there's a lot of players from different sports, from baseball to football, whatever it may be, basketball, that look at hockey players and think we're all whacked. That we play through these injuries, and it's almost this badge of honor. It's almost like there's been players before you who have already set the standard of what you have to do to win the Stanley Cup, and what Ryan Malone did, taking a puck in the face. I guarantee you, from any player from any other sport would have said, I need a day off. I need a break.
Think an NFL player would have done that?
And the one thing about, you know, just the emotional drain, and you said you pull the plug and it all comes out. This isn't just a season dream for these guys. You know it better than we do, obviously. This is a lifetime dream. This is stuff when you're 5 years old, you're thinking, I'm going to have a chance to hoist the Stanley Cup. Then you have that chance and you come up 2 wins short.
Every tabletop hockey game you play, every street hockey game you play, every play you play in your mind when you're sleeping at night when you're 8 years old, it's all about this right here, the cup over your head. That's what you dream about. And when you're that close, and then you have to go in the dressing room, and the other team's out on your ice, on your home ice, in front of your home fans, and they're celebrating, that's the big dagger right here.
Is this how you always drink your raspberry iced teas? What's in there?
A little extra here.
Hey, you guys were talking about Ryan Malone. This is a picture was taken of Ryan Malone before he took that puck to the face. Here's a guy, as you mentioned, he already had a broken nose. He gets that wicked shot on, I mean, I think anybody who saw that cringed and was probably cringing for the better part of an hour. Then he's at practicing deflections, tip-ins in front, and not even flinching.
And he's a free agent. He's going to sign a huge contract.
With somebody.
With someone, whether it's Pittsburgh or wherever, he's going to sign a huge contract. What if he got hurt worse? What if it was a season-ending? What if it was a career-ending injury?
Borky said it best. He said, it's a long way from the heart. And that was that's a great way to put it.
Really is.
I think they showed more heart and more grit, not only to play through injuries, but to play when they were facing elimination with the kind of determination and focus that they had. I thought it was just phenomenal.
As soon as he got the x-rays back that said they hadn't broken any bones, I thought that was the magic answer for him. He said, I'm going to go. I asked him before that next game, I said, do you go with the face shield? He goes, doesn't give me enough protection. I'm not going to worry about it.
Well, when we walked in the other night, the first guy we went to was Ryan Malone, and Ryan Malone may have been the most upset of all the players in the locker room. He stayed in the same spot for the better part of a half hour, maybe 40 minutes, not moving. And I wondered to myself afterward, he's obviously upset with the loss, but maybe Ryan Malone felt that was his last game with the Penguins, and that was really weighing heavily on him as the atmosphere kind of took its toll on everybody in that locker room.
I think there's some of that emotion that came out. Obviously, he laid it all on the line for his brothers, and that's really what that dressing room's like. It's like a family, and they've talked about that unity and that chemistry. And there's a lot of guys in there that aren't going to be here next year. And maybe Ryan Malone at that moment thought for a second, maybe it's not me.
How about this guy? I mean, is there a chance that he'd be around? He told Rich the other day. What did he tell you?
I do have news about that. I asked
Marian
him.
Hossa.
I asked him if winning is more important than making a few extra dollars somewhere else? And he said yes. And then I flat out asked him, would he be willing to stay here for less money? And he said yes. Now, you have a good take on that, but
we know how that goes.
Yeah, we know how that goes.
Yeah, but then they put those zeros in front of you, and it changes the conversation.
Well, but how much money though? That's what we were talking about a little bit earlier. I mean, what's the price? I mean, yeah, he might be willing to stay here for less, but how less? What, 500,000?
I remember when Barry Bonds was playing his final season in Pittsburgh, and I said, "Will you take less money to play in Pittsburgh?" He said, "How much less?"
Yeah.
And he looked at me, and let's face it. But if guys are smart enough to know that whether they make $40 million or $35 million, it doesn't matter.
Well, there's a couple things to that, and that's what
But
we
that's
talked about
$5
earlier.
million, though.
Yeah, when you're talking about terms also, what kind of terms is he going to get? Is it going to be 4 years or is it going to be 5 years? You got to figure with Malone and Hossa, that's probably where you're looking at, somewhere in that range. There's going to be at least one team out of 30 teams is going to offer them a pretty healthy contract. Now let's just throw that 500,000 number out there. You put that over 5 years. That's $2.5 million they're leaving on the table to say, I want to stay in Pittsburgh. Would both those guys do that? I believe they would.
Everybody watched Sidney Crosby in the playoffs, and a few people said to me, well, and I agree with this, that, Mario Lemieux, he would have buried a lot of shots to carry his team, to do things that his team needed him to do. Well, Crosby was great throughout the playoffs, but people forget he's 20 years old. He won't be 21 until August 7th. He's 6-7 years shy of his prime. Think about that for a second. And he was great, and nobody will deny that. But I think to try to look at him in the same way you looked at Mario Lemieux in 91 and 92 is not fair.
He was 7 years in. Lemieux was 7 years in. He was smack in the middle of his prime.
Right.
And he knew that this was his big opportunity, made some great trades. He knew he had Bourque behind him, backing him up.
Here you go, Bill.
I get a fry.
You get a fry.
Thank you very much. So I think that's a major difference. I think you make a great point. You just have to expect that he's going to continue to grow.
Yeah, and I know this still stings for Sid. It's only been a few days since the final's been over, and he's an emotional kid. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He's a true leader in this team, on and off the ice. We understand that he's more of a quiet leader in the room, a lot like Mario was. So, there's better days ahead for Sidney Crosby, and there is championships in his future. You have to know that with the kind of dedication and leadership that he has.
I couldn't have been happier for this guy when he got that goal. He got the assist in Game 5, but when Evgeny Malkin got the goal...
If you had said Chris Osgood, there would have been a brawl.
They're coming over the top.
When he scored that goal, I think everybody in that arena, including his teammates, really felt the lift but Malkin was back doing what people were accustomed to seeing him
And you
doing.
found out after the game, he admitted he was a little sick. The beginning of the series, end of the Phillies series, beginning of the Detroit series, and everyone wondered, well, he seems a little sluggish. Does he have a concussion? And that would kind of go with that sluggishness. If you're under the weather, maybe it's not a concussion, but you just don't feel up to 100%. You're not skating. Rich is eating him up.
Yeah,
just
go
eating
get him,
him.
man.
No, but Detroit, you got to
I'm
give them
listening.
some
I'm
credit.
taking it all in.
For what Detroit was able to do, they smothered Crosby, they smothered Malkin, and it made it very difficult on them. It really put a lot of onus on the Penguins' secondary scoring, and 6 games went by pretty quick, didn't it, guys?
Sure
Next
did.
thing you know, you blinked and it was over, and the Penguins just didn't get that secondary scoring to maybe help out, bail out guys like Evgeny Malkin and Sidney Crosby.
Favorite picture of my wallet is this one right here.
Coming up, grading the coach as 11 on the Ice continues. Welcome back to 11 on the Ice from Jerome Bettis' Grill 36.
The favorite picture of my wallet is this one right here. Let me ask you something.
You got a big wallet, man.
Oh, are you kidding me? There's no money in it, though. Talk about the job that Michael Therrien did this year. Let's face it. He, like many of the players that played for him, he was kind of thrown around a little bit. Prove yourself. There were some times in if you look back over the season, and certainly to last season, where he was grabbing onto those reins, but it wasn't always pulling back to the center of the road.
This is a rare photo here also, because obviously it's in the Stanley Cup Finals, and he's smiling. Right. Which is something we didn't see too often during the finals. He was all business, but Michel Therrien, he's a special guy, and he's not a guy that you can really wrap your arms around. He's not that warm and fuzzy type of guy, and I think that's the way he likes it. That's his personality, and you have to appreciate. But I really felt he had his finger on the pulse of this team. He pushed a lot of buttons at the right time, and I know he chafed some guys sometimes with the
Tough
way.
love.
Hey, tough love, baby.
Right.
I mean, it's not a popularity contest. It's about winning hockey games, and And you can't deny his record over the last couple of years.
I thought he did a great job working the NHL officials during his press conferences. And, you'd have a guy ask him a question, he'd completely ignore the question, and all of a sudden he's talking about the obstruction penalties, and then the reporter would follow up and say, well, that's a nice answer on obstruction, but can you get the answer to my question? He said, no, I'm done talking about obstruction. Okay, but all of a sudden some of those calls started to go the Penguins' way. I think he did a great job.
He helped carry the Pens to the playoffs.
He was phenomenal. He was ridiculous in that outdoor game.
We're showing some love for one of the team's unsung heroes when 11 on the Ice continues. Welcome back to 11 on the Ice from Jerome Bettis Grill 36.
This guy would be a tough guy to lose. He's going to be able to, Brooks Orpik, he's going to be able to, but that may be a bigger hit than losing Malone and or Hossa, because everybody's resigned to the fact they're going to lose one of those guys.
Well, you look at where the Penguins
Brooks
Orpik, yeah, I mean, phenomenal playoffs. He really had a big step forward in the regular season. Where are the Penguins number-wise? They're about $34 million committed for next year. The cap's going up to about $54, $55 million. So you got about $20 million to spend. Where's it? First of all, where's that $20 million coming? We're still in the old barn in the Mellon Arena. We got 2 more seasons there. So you got $20 million to spend. Are they going to spend up to that much? Where's that revenue going to come from? And you got about 10 free agents to spend that money on. Remember, Marc-Andre Fleury's a restricted free agent. Is it Malone? Is it Orpik?
I have a picture of him.
You guys are forgetting.
There he is. He's restricted. I think the Pens' priorities this offseason are sign Malkin early in the offseason, long term, and sign Marc-Andre Fleury.
And Jordan Stahl.
Jordan Stahl.
Yes.
The problem with Fleury is, if he's restricted. If he gets an offer sheet, Penguins have a right to match, but they could be. They want to get that. They want to get that out of the way before it goes through the roof.
Which is 5 first-round draft picks. I mean, they'll be compensated well if they could lose a guy.
Yeah, but you don't want to lose a guy that could be your goalie for
because Ty Conklin, the backup, he's unrestricted. And you got to figure somebody's going to throw out a bid on him.
And
he could be.
He wants to be a starter. He wants to be a starter. He doesn't want to be here as a backup.
How about when Conklin went crazy? When Fleury was hurt, he was the guy. And who would have thought it would play out the way it did, where Fleury comes in and has this game for the ages in Game 5. I'll tell you what, that game, in my opinion, was a coming of age for this kid.
How much did Ty Conklin help Marc-Andre Fleury? He comes back, he seems like, I've watched this. I see how Ty's doing it. I can put that into my game.
The Flower actually talked about that. And handling the puck, what I think was the biggest difference in Marc-Andre Fleury's game. And his calmness in the net.
Back there.
Yeah, I mean, he was before, but I think after watching Ty Conklin, while he was out with that high ankle sprain, he realized, hey, calm it down. Settle things down a little bit in the net, and also when I get out of my net and I get the puck behind the net, get my head up, find out where I want to move the puck, and move it with a purpose. And that was a complete different Marc-Andre Fleury.
Do you think he may have looked at the way Ty Conklin was playing, and that may have shaking him up a little bit? In other words, I don't want to lose my job
on the door here. I thought I was the number one.
Yeah.
This guy's knocking on the
Right.
door.
And if you remember, Ty Conklin was number 3. He wasn't even the number 2
He was in the
goalie.
minors.
Yeah. So, I mean, you had a number 3 goalie. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that it would motivate anyone.
You talk about a goaltender in the zone, Billy. How he was so in the zone. You talk about some great games during the season. The outdoor game. Ty Conklin gets to play in that outdoor game, and he was phenomenal. He was ridiculous in that outdoor game in Buffalo. Ty Conklin, he's a big reason why we went as far as we did.
Everyone talks about physical defensemen. Orpik brings that. The Penguins, I think they got more physical as the season went as a group. Sure. How important, even if he leaves, will that leave a void with that group because he's not a physical guy? Gill's getting a little older, Sador's getting a little older. How critical is?
I think it'll be a big void. I thought when Mark Eaton went down and then Rob Scuderi went down, I thought he stepped in very admirably, and he played with Sergei Gonchar as well as he did, and he allowed the game to come to him. He allowed the hits to come to him, and the blocked shots. In the last game, he had 10 blocked shots. I mean, this guy was a true warrior in the way he played, and I think he's going to be sorely missed if he does leave.
You think he wants to stay? I mean, he had his troubles. Everyone knows that.
Everybody
here.
knows it. Yeah.
I mean,
he got put up on the wing.
I was going to say, he moved from defense to offense and back to defense, and he was in the doghouse. Do you think he wants to be here, or do you think he's from the West Coast?
I think he's maybe on the fence. I think he feels like maybe my time is run out here. That maybe I'll be maybe more appreciated. I don't know, somewhere else. He's definitely going to get an offer.
How about this guy? I look at this guy, Max Talbot. as
their energy.
in many ways the life of that locker room. Much like you used to be.
I
quite
love
honestly.
that guy. I
You know
absolutely
what?
love him.
He's got a great personality. He's always accessible. He's funny, but he also showed the competitive side of him after Game 7 or after Game 6. He was anything but happy. I mean, he didn't even pretend to be cordial. He was hurting in that locker room. But I love Max. I think that Max gives them an element that they sorely need.
And let's remember all our emotions after Game 5 when he scored that game-tying goal.
Right.
A lot of people were already putting it down as one of the most memorable sports moments in Pittsburgh history, and it really was. One of those things where we'll talk about it in 20 years from now. Remember when the Cup was getting wheeled out in Detroit and he scored that game-tying goal?
You're up in the booth. Alby's down underneath already.
I'm in Pittsburgh.
You're in Pittsburgh, watching on TV, rooting them on. And I come down out of the press elevator, walk out, gentleman with a big flatbed, for lack of a word, with boxes all over it. And I said, championship T-shirts? Yep, going to sell them right now. Oh, that hurts.
Yeah.
Walk by, see Chris Letang in the hallway, give him my condolences after losing his friend. Next thing you know, as we're talking, the champagne goes in on ice. And I'm thinking, how tough a week is he having? And that hurts a little bit. Now, we're not supposed to root when we're watching. It's, we're supposed to be professionals. And not that we're rooting, screaming, cheering, anything like that, but you're watching the TV, and I know all the guys from Pittsburgh and Detroit were going, come on, just find a way, find a way. And when Max scored that goal, you heard the Pittsburgh contingent give up way to go. Nothing too loud. And the Detroit contingent went, what are we going to do now?
Well,
it was, and then how fast did they get that champagne out of that locker room?
And that was I think that people had that reaction. I was surprised because press boxes or media groups are normally very, very objective. They really are. But hey, this is a team that everybody had followed throughout the season, throughout the playoffs. I grew up watching the Pens and saw them struggle to try to get to 91 and 92, then struggle to get back. And they're a bunch of good kids. I mean, great kids. Good kids wouldn't even be the right way to say it. They're great kids, great heart. The big thing is, though, when that champagne was wheeled in with the commissioner behind and the Conn Smythe Trophy, the Stanley Cup, it was great to see them have to rush that back out before the Red Wings got there for the intermission. And I said to the commissioner, and I kind of took it upon myself to go up to the commissioner and, kid him a little bit.
Did you tell him you're the mayor of Pittsburgh?
I said, hello, Commissioner, I'm the mayor of Pittsburgh. He said, you're much too old to be the mayor of Pittsburgh. And I said, you got out of that locker room pretty quickly, didn't you, Commissioner? Giving him the business a little bit. No, he has no choice. He's got to go where that's going to be the winner. But, boy, when he tied that game, and you're right, Max Talbot will be forever linked with that moment. I said to somebody the other night, this will be one of those moments, as you just said, that will be remembered. And they said, well, there's a lot of good games. The 5 overtime game with Peter Nedved. I said, well, that's a great game, but there's one difference. This is the Stanley Cup Finals, and the Pens were facing elimination. And when you're facing elimination, he doesn't put that goal in, they get the cup, and you go home. And I think that makes it a moment. Now, if Max would have scored that goal and the Pens would have lost it in overtime, it would maybe not have the luster. Or let's go back to that other guy. Where is he? This guy. If this guy has 55 saves in a game that they lose, it's a ridiculous save. It's a great effort, but it means a little bit more historically when you look back and you say, wow, 55 saves, he stood in his head and he won the game for them.
So what's bigger, Talbot's goal, Fleury's play, or Peter Sikora's goal? I mean, what was the bigger?
I think it all
starts with Talbot, but
I think the fact that Sikora called his goal was pretty good.
Yeah.
Have you ever in your life seen a guy call a goal in overtime live on TV?
Not quite like that in the Stanley Cup Finals. The first goal he had scored on the road in the playoffs also, and he had been struggling along with Malkin, and the two of them hook up. And ironically, that night in the Pennsylvania lottery, picked 4 71-71, and that goal was 17 from 71.
We're not done yet.
I wrote a note to Craig Patrick.
Hear how Phil Bourque tried to make a Pittsburgh comeback. Next. Welcome back to 11 on the Ice from Jerome Bettis Grill 36.
In a general sense, just try to look at what they try to predict what the Penguins will do, and I think everybody it seems to agree that Hossa will be gone. Hossa's he was a hired gun.
It looks that way.
Not unless you listen to my interview today.
But now he says he'll stay. All right, so the three of you think that Hossa will be gone.
I think he'll be gone. I think he'd love to stay, but I think the offers are going to be too overwhelming that he's going to take the money.
Obviously, I don't know what's going on in each guy's head, but I think if all things are even, I think you try and keep Malone, a little bit younger guy, hometown guy that's laid it on the line, crowd favorite. Host is great, came in and did exactly what he was supposed to do. But if I'm going to pay the money, I'm going to pay it to the little bit younger guy, try and keep him, especially a hometown guy that everyone
All right,
loves.
so assuming they re-sign Malkin and Fleury and
Stahl.
Jordan Stahl, and you have Crosby in the fold, and I mean that's an incredible core
Best
to
in the
build
league.
around.
And you're going to get another guy like Sikora. I mean, there's going to be free agents that are going to want to come here to replace Hossa. I mean, I think Hossa's gone. I think Orpik's gone. I think both those guys are gone, no question.
How big a loss will Orpik be?
Malone on the
It'll be a
fence
big
with
hole.
him.
It'll be a big hole, but as Rich said, there's other guys out there that maybe you can get that maybe is not the exact same thing as Brooks Orpik. Maybe a guy that you can get for a little bit less money, but there's some second-tier guys too that maybe we should talk about. And Pascal Dupuis and Jarko
I think
Ruutu,
he
George
stays.
Larocque.
I think they need a guy like Ruutu.
Yeah,
I like the
agree.
way he plays. I think he'll definitely be back. I think Dupuis wants to be here
I think
too.
Alby said it once. He's his generation's Ulf Samuelson. You know,
Yeah.
he's kind of that agitator,
There's not too
instigator
many in
type
the
guy.
league like him.
And I think you've got some eligibility left. So if Orpik leaves, put you right back in the lineup, big guy.
My skates are always sharpened in the back of my car. I'm all,
And by the
Just
way,
in case.
you may have gotten the money from the Rangers, but you know this, you'll always be a Penguin.
I'll tell you what, 2 months into being the New York Rangers, I wanted to be with the New York Rangers. I wanted to come back. In fact, we were on a charter flight one time, and the stewardess said that, hey, we're picking up the Pittsburgh Penguins after we drop you guys off. And I wrote on a little bit of on the little barf bag there, I wrote a note to Craig Patrick. I said, hey, available, left winger, hardworking, gritty, would love to come play with you. I said, hey, will you give this to Craig Patrick? I don't know if he ever got it or not, but anyways, I never came back. He never called.
From Pittsburgh's biggest sports team and your home for the Stanley Cup Finals. Thanks for watching 11 on the Ice.